Welcome, 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 everyone, to another fantabulous episode of Real Women, Real Talk. I am your snuffleupagus host once again, Shavon Carter, and I'm a facilitator for Real Women, and I am joined by the amazing.
I am your spirited, working out, fit, doing all the things founder of Real Women, Trenace Richardson.
Hilarious. I love all the energy. I love it. So if you are listening to this, you can hear that I'm a little stuffy today. I don't know. It's just my allergies are acting up on this episode, but we're going to get through it. We're going to be all right. And we're going to have some fun today because this topic is going to be a little spicy. So I cannot wait to get into our deep dive and talk about it. But before we get into any of that, sister, how are you doing today? Real talk.
Real talk, I am hyped up in order to
Okay.
to counter how I'm really feeling.
Sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. Yes.
Listen, I am pushing myself out of um tired, just a little drained, and
Mm.
and a little frustrated. My teenager makes things wonderful sometimes, and
Mm.
so yeah, so I decided as soon as I got home today, I was gonna go for a walk, and then it turned into a run, and
Uh-huh.
then it was fix some dinner and do the things, and so by the time it was time for us to tape, I was like, oh, so I'm gonna be sporty today. I mean, if y'all can only hear us and can't see us, I got on my cap and I got on my Peloton shirt. I'm advertising for them. We accept sponsors, Peloton. Um, and so I decided I'm going to come in my workout gear because I am working it all out.
Yes, yes. Well,
Mhm,
amen. Ain't nothing wrong with
mhm.
it. I love it. I am here for it. You did all the things today, and that is wonderful. As
How
for
are
me,
you?
yeah, I just woke up from a nice nap. I took some allergy medicine and I went to sleep. And so I am feeling rested. Uh-huh. So I feel great. I'm ready for
Oh,
today's.
good. Now let me ask you, when you take a nap in the earlier part of the day,
Uh-huh.
after you do something like this, will you still be able to go to bed at the regular time, or will you stay up for a little while longer?
It'll probably keep me up for a little while, which is cool because I have some homework to do. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm good with that. Yep. So,
Okay.
a little
Cool.
nap prepare me for the night shift that I need to work tonight. So that's great.
I call it that too. I'm like, all right, I'm pulling the night shift. Yep.
Exactly. Yep. So it's all good. So, before we get into our deep dive conversation, I do have another real talk question for you, sister. And this is something that I was just scrolling on Instagram and I happened to see this and I was like, huh, this is interesting. So, would you attend or want to have, let's say, if you were renewing your vows, a water wedding? And let me describe the visual that I saw on Instagram. So
Because
it
I just envision all us underwater. So
not underwater. So picture yourself at the beach, and when you're walking into the water, like the very when you're just getting into the water, the shallow part of the water, and imagine chairs. There, so people's feet and maybe part of their legs are immersed in the water, and so that part is there. And then a little further out, the arch is there. And then the bride and the groom are in the water. So maybe like waist down in the water. And they are having a wedding right there. So would you want to attend or have one of those?
first of all, I'm thinking, are we doing our vows and getting baptized? Are we doing them both at the same time? Are we what are we doing?
That's the point. Yeah.
We becoming one with each other and with the Lord all at the same time. Okay, so I would definitely attend a water wedding.
Okay.
That would be the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
I'm I'm a beach girl. I love having my shoes off.
Hmm.
Being able to dress for the beach or whatever they would allow, for the shallow water. Really cool. Um, I knowing me and my family,
Uh-huh.
um, and if I was eloping and just doing it for me, then maybe, but knowing my family, I would not do it myself, wanting my loved ones to come. Because, child, I could hear my aunts now. What? In the water? Me? In the water? My feet, no, man. I don't get in the water on with my bathing suit on. I'm not getting it, all of the things. Child. Nope, I would attend one, but I wouldn't expect to
Yeah.
have a bunch of guests at, family, loved ones. I think some of my girlfriends would definitely, brave something like that. But
Yeah.
mm-mm.
Yeah. I get it. So what was interesting, I don't know if it was AI or this actually happened, what I was looking at, but the people had on like wedding attire and they had dresses and everything and they were just sitting in the water. So if it were something like that, if it were something like that, I wouldn't want to do it personally if it were my wedding. However, I would attend one just to see what it's like. I would prefer to have the bathing suit on or something to let it be that type of water wedding, but because I'm thinking about the logistics and it looks great in pictures, but you're all soaking wet. You got to try to dry off. The dirt is sticking to your leg. The sand is sticking to your legs, and then it's getting on your clothes. And then where are you going to go after that? Are you going to go on land to have the reception? So I'm just thinking about all of that, and I just don't like sand on me. I just don't like
Yeah,
it. That's part of the
yeah,
reason why I don't really like the beach that much. I like to look at beach water, but I don't like to be near it because of the sand.
yeah. I'm cool with the sand on my feet. I'm cool with all of the grounding things.
Right.
So I want my feet to touch all of the things on the
Okay.
ground.
Okay.
But I don't like sitting in the sand. I don't like after because you're naturally when you're in the ocean water, by the time you're done, you got sand all up your crack and
Right.
inside your bathing suit and all that. You got to take a shower very shortly after in your hair, like you got to watch. It's all the things. So the feeling of being in the ocean is great, but the
Mhm.
sand, I'm with you that I don't mind the sand on my feet, but the sand all in my booty and all,
Yeah.
that's just a lot.
That's a whole nother thing. And sand is so invasive. Like you can think you have rinsed off really good, and then you get to your hotel room, and then it's like, where's this sand coming from?
Mm-mm.
Like it. Mm-mm. But I would
Mm.
attend just for the experience of it and to support the people that I'm going to witness their wedding. But yeah,
Yeah,
if
that's different. I've seen some AI stuff, and then
Mhm.
I've seen some really casual, like sundresses.
Okay.
I've seen some people do some of that at the shore, but not
Okay.
necessarily in the water. So I got to
No
look that
water.
up.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was very interesting. So, yeah. So we would love to hear from you all. Feel free to reach out to us. Visit us at speakpipe.com/real women real talk, or you can email us at info@realwomenrock.org and tell us whether you would like to attend or have a water wedding. We would love to hear from you. All right, sister. So I wanted to have a little spicy conversation today for our deep dive discussion because this is something that I think we just need to talk about it,
Mhm.
and just have a direct conversation about it. And I'm looking forward to seeing what will come from this discussion. But I want to talk about sex,
Yeah.
FX, or if you
Let's
want
talk
to say
about sex,
right.
baby. Let's talk about you and me. We grown.
I
Grown,
was
why
just
not?
gonna say that we are in our big 40s and big 50s. Why can't we
Mhm.
talk about it? Why?
And
Why not?
can and can
It can.
and
But it's
will and about to.
and about to. So I will make sure I put that this is, an explicit episode. It's not for the children. None of our episodes are for the children, but I'll just make sure that I say that for this one because we're going to be grown today. Just that's just
Yes,
what we're going to do.
I'm
So
with it.
I want to talk about it from the perspective of not like the different positions or anything like that, but just the subject of sex. I want to talk about like what we were taught about sex growing up, and talk about it like our upbringing, if we had anything that hindered us from engaging in the sex and in the sex.
You sound like an old lady.
Even when you have the sex, make sure you do this. So yeah, I just want to talk about it from the subject and then some other things. So I'll start with the first question. When you think about sex, growing up, what were you taught about it?
Don't do it.
Uh-huh.
You're going to hell if you do.
Mm-hmm.
You can get pregnant. You can get diseases.
Mm.
Um, and that those were the ones God is it's wrong. Sex
Mm.
is wrong. Sex is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the things that were explicitly said, like very clearly articulated,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was at home or at church, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
What was caught rather than explicitly taught
Mm.
um, was uh, sex is for men to enjoy and for women to endure.
Wow. Okay.
Um, it just felt like men enjoyed it, men wanted women for it.
Mm-hmm.
And both from my own personal experience, because while I was young, and for at a certain age you don't feel like it's appropriate to talk to young people about sex. Well,
Yeah.
at those ages I was being molested,
Okay.
so I was exposed to
Mm-hmm.
sexual acts
Mm-hmm.
a lot earlier than I was probably going to be exposed to it at all.
Uh-huh.
So I was caught that it was for men's enjoyment and women's enduring.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so interesting. One, thank you for sharing that,
Mhm.
because I'm sure a lot of women who are listening to this can relate to some of those early childhood violations. I
Mhm.
definitely can and understand, because that is a part of my background as well. And so I like how you distinguish what you were taught and what you caught, because
Mhm.
that is a difference for many of us. So for me, the main thing that I was taught about sex was don't do it because my mom didn't want me to become a statistic because she had me when she was 17 and she didn't want me to go down that same path. So I
Mhm.
don't remember a conversation about exactly what it is and what happens and like the birds and the bees. I don't remember us talking about that. And so I didn't have a lot of information about it. And what was also taught like through my friends was it's fun, it feels good, and everybody's doing it, which
Mm.
made me want to experience what they were experiencing.
Yeah, I did leave that part out. That was true. I had family members, cousins, and schoolmates who talked about it in more positive terms. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. And when you mentioned what was caught, I'm trying to think what was caught for me as it relates to sex. I think what was caught was that it was an enjoyable experience that and pleasurable, and that it gives you some pleasurable feelings. So I think that was the only thing that was caught from
Mhm.
yeah, from that. So yeah, okay. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
that part. And because I just wanted to like lay the foundation as we're talking about this, like what was our background, what were we taught about it, and we'll talk about in a minute how that impacted us as adults, because many of us did start when we were in our younger years. So
Hmm.
being that both of us grew up with a Christian upbringing, and that was a part of our background and our foundation. And so, of course, our spirituality had a part to play in how we viewed sex and what we were taught about sex. So, how did your Christian upbringing impact your view of sex? Like, what things did you were you taught about it from the Christian perspective?
Yeah, so much. It was the ultimate sin.
Mm,
Um, even um, I'd say there was it only seemed to be one other thing that um, that you could do, and it was still in this area. So it was like we vilified homosexuality
mm-hmm.
just a bit more than we vilified heterosexuality.
Yeah.
Um, before marriage, having
Mm-hmm.
sex before marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was vilified. Fornication, adultery, those words were used a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
I was raised in purity culture,
Okay.
so abstinence was a big word for us.
Mhm.
Um, and I I think what I gathered was I was not clean and
Mm,
I was not acceptable to God
um,
if I dirtied myself up with sex.
mhm,
I was your body is a temple and you're allowing someone else to literally defile your temple
mhm,
if you do that. And one way to keep it clean is to abstain um,
mhm,
from
mhm,
sex. And I was always very confused because being taught really well as it relates to what the scriptures say, there's a part of the scripture that says, if you even think lustful thoughts, you might as, it says, if you did it. And I
yeah.
was like, well, dang, I got to clean up my thoughts. Like, not even just having sex. If I'm abstaining from having sex, but I'm thinking about it, like that's a problem,
Yeah. Mhm,
So my Christian upbringing made it a big no-no for
mhm,
me, a big
mhm.
no-no. Um, and yeah, I'll talk about what that did to me. But yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah. So you know what's interesting? I didn't start having consensual, well, yeah, consensual sex until 17.
Mhm.
Yes, when I was in my junior year of high school. And before then, I really prided myself on being a virgin. But I don't remember it being connected to me, the Christian messaging that I received. Like, I don't remember a
Mm.
lot of messaging then. The only thing that stood out and what made me laugh just now to myself was "No More Sheets" by Juanita Bynum. So that is a message that I remember, and it was I think she had a book associated with it, and just talking about the importance of abstaining. And so I do remember that, but I don't know if I made the connection that that's why I was waiting. I think it was just, it seemed like such a cool thing to be a virgin and not do it. So I was holding on to it for a long time until when I actually had sex, I actually cried because I felt like I was giving up something that I held on to and saw as sacred for a long time. And so my Christian upbringing, the impact of sex and the view of it didn't start to impact me or affect me until I got to college and when I really started to engage in the act. And I think I started to go to church more and just listening and understanding like, oh, I am sinning by doing this. And that's when the guilt started to surface and really when I really started to understand that it was supposed to be for marriage, but even though it was for the in to be done in the confines of marriage, what I really focused on was the guilt of, and you shouldn't do it. Like that's what I held on to. So
Okay, I got
so
a question.
uh-huh.
I'm sorry. So when you say you started and I'll answer the question I'm asking too,
uh,
but you say you started at 17.
yes.
What do we constitute as sex at this point? Like, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? What acts are we talking about
For
exactly?
me, it was penetration. Like
Okay.
that, yeah, for me, that's when it started for me, the penetration, because I was dry humping before that,
Mhm.
but I did not consider that as sex, and me being fondled when I was younger by an uncle. So those things I didn't consider as sex. For me, it was sex when the penetration happened. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm,
I asked because, of course, just thinking about it myself, when would I say I started?
okay.
So that's like consensually, was
Uh-huh.
relative. And
Yeah.
so I would say penetration was in college.
Okay. Oh,
So I was like, I don't know, how old are you in college? 19, maybe 20?
19. Yeah, between
Yeah.
18 and
18,
21,
19, 20. It
22.
was my freshman year,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
whatever my freshman year was.
Mhm.
But my at least my high school years, I remember my first French kiss was in the ninth grade, and I just
Okay.
thought, "Oh my god." No, 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 that's not true, that's not true. It was the 7th grade and the ninth. It was a ninth grader who kissed me, that's what it
Okay, okay.
I was in the 7th grade for my first French kiss, and he was in the ninth grade. I just thought, "Oh my god, and but so that my high school years, fondling and dry humping, and then, I played around with oral in high school, so
Oh,
I
really?
girl, so because dudes would just pull it out and be like, "Come on, please," you know?
I don't remember
Girl,
when
please.
I don't remember that being a part of the conversation with my friends. I don't know when I discovered that part of it.
Child, he'd be like, "This all you gotta do. You just kiss it.
Uh-uh.
Just kiss it." Mhm.
Funny. Oh my gosh, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so just thinking back to those days, so yeah, I really carried the guilt when I started doing it for real in college, and then it really ramped up during my young adult years because I was
Mhm.
really present to it and just carrying that guilt. That was something. So,
If I could just echo that. So
uh,
my college years when I started, um, I was doing this back and forth, and I spent a lot of time at those college revivals. I was in the gospel choir, so I was going to church every Sunday, and it was weekend sex, and then coming on Sunday and asking the Lord, Father God, forgive me, Jesus, and then making my way back to school and being invited back to his room again and just
uh,
starting this cycle all over again. And I swore up and down to my mama, no, I'm not having sex.
yeah.
No, and sure was. So,
Mhm.
mm,
You know what's interesting about that when you were talking about just not having the thoughts or anything. So once I graduated college and moved to the DC metro area, I started going to church, and then maybe about a year or so, and maybe 2 years into being in this area, I decided to abstain and go back to just not having sex. So I did that probably about 3 years, and just really being serious and not about not doing it, but I still had the guilty feeling that I was even thinking about it or desiring it. So it was just such a tough time. Even though I wasn't engaging, I still had those thoughts and feelings of I'm still not doing it right, or I'm still wrong, or uh,
child. It's
yeah,
so funny how we beat ourselves up, Lord.
exactly.
We flog ourselves.
We
So same thing. I think I, would abstain in between relationships for
uh,
short periods of time, and then right before, it's so funny. Right before I met my husband, I had gone like a 9-month stint. So
uh-huh.
I was like, oh, God, you sent me my husband because I
Right. That's your reward for abstaining,
for,
right?
for 9 months.
Right. Right. What you was doing, you was being obedient, and look what the Lord bless you.
Look what the Lord done did. Sent
What he
me a
done.
man. Mhm.
And it's so funny before I get into the next question. So when I got married, or when I got divorced, I should say. So when I got divorced, I went on another 3-year stint, right, of not having sex because I just needed to heal and just I didn't feel like I didn't want nobody to bother me. But so I wrote a book during that time, and my thinking was, okay, I'm abstaining and I'm writing a book about my life to bless and minister to other people. Surely you're going to send me my husband. And so by year 3, when I published the book and nothing happened, I was like, well, forget this. I'm about to go out and do what I want to do because
Let me
my
tell you something.
is coming.
Let me tell you. So sometime during that time after your divorce,
Yeah.
when I was connected to you,
Uh-huh.
you you was saved. You hear me?
I was
You
sanctified
was
with the Holy Ghost.
saved. I mean, I remember early Real Women Sister Circles, all of us was doing more of a Bible study than anything else. But I remember them scriptures being laid out by Shavon Carter. Let me tell you. So yeah, I remember
All
those
I
days.
knew, because I was a Sunday school teacher when I was at my old church, so it's all I knew to make the connection with the scripture and then the message. So it's so interesting how things have shifted and evolved, and yes.
Yes.
So we're talking about sex, and we're talking about how we were taught, what we caught, the messaging, and all of those things. So I was just wondering, sister, because I've heard women talk about this before, that because of what they were taught from the Christian perspective, when they got married and they had the quote unquote license to have sex under God's view and the marriage bed is undefiled, they had a challenge transitioning and not letting go of that guilt. So they had a challenge accepting that it was okay for them to do it. And I was just wondering, did you have a challenge when you transitioned from being single to married as it relates to sex?
Child, yes. And this needs to be talked about. I didn't know where we were going with this conversation, but
Uh-huh.
I'm so glad we are here,
Mhm.
because it needs to be discussed in a very real way.
Mhm.
Um, I know I can count on one hand and not use all of my fingers the
Mhm.
women that I know who waited until they got married to
Mhm.
have sex. I the number gets smaller, and I still haven't used all my fingers if
Yeah.
I count the women who they and their husbands were virgins before they
Mm.
got married, right?
Okay. Uh-huh.
So that means that most of us have experienced, just from my experience dealing with the people in my circles, both
Yes.
small circles and larger, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Most of us have had sex before marriage and then go into marriage. And
Mhm.
so, for those of us who have this Christian upbringing or who have been taught for whatever reasons, or even abuse, whatever, who have had all of these issues with sex, and we come into marriage where
Mhm.
it's supposed to be this undefiled and free to roam and all of that, nothing magical happens in your head that
Right.
causes you to transition from it's bad to now it's good.
Right.
That
Mhm.
nothing just clicks and all of a sudden you're freaky deaky and a queen whatever in the streets and a freak in the sheets and all that.
Yeah.
Like none of that just happens.
Mm-mm.
And so for me, I I told myself that now everything is good and it's all right. And me and my husband had sex before we got married, right?
Right. Mhm.
But we were doing that wrestle, and that's one of the reasons why we got married faster
Yeah.
than most. We met and married in 90 days. One of
Mhm.
those was because we wanted to do it the right way. And so we thought jumping right into it would help us.
Mhm.
And so um, in jumping right into it with both of us, it was still bringing all of our baggage, whatever. I will say on both sides, we didn't have whether we were not having any sex or whether we were having too much sex, all of
Mhm.
that baggage and mentality is brought over into it. And
Yeah.
so yes, I had a challenge,
Mhm.
and it was more about it was twofold, if I'm honest. It
Mhm.
was still not feeling comfortable in my skin, judging my body,
Yeah.
judging whether or not I was doing things in a way that was pleasing.
Mhm.
And we were rabbits when we first got married, so it wasn't like we weren't having it. We were having it,
Right.
and we were enamored with each other. But I was still wrestling with a lot of my thoughts internally. And then when marriage becomes the regular everyday and we start, challenging each other just because we're naturally different, then, it's easier for me to externalize what I'm thinking and feeling, right? So now it's not just me judging me, but it's me wondering, you know, whether he's thinking about somebody else or whether, it's just easy for us to get to a place, I think, where we can pretend that sex just is wonderful after on the other side, but it's
Mhm.
not. It's a challenge just like any other part of our relationship.
Yeah. What helped you to work through that challenge and be able to find comfort in your marriage and in your sex life?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost counseling.
Mhm.
Just being able to talk, because lack of comfort, especially in a physical like sex, it's it's hindered or helped by emotional safety.
Mm.
So if I did not feel safe emotionally, I was definitely not going to feel safe in that physical area.
Yeah.
And so in counseling, we were able to connect better emotionally.
Mm.
And that would open me up to feel safer to talk about things, to talk about what I was wondering, whether he liked some things, and to ask him if he, what he thought about what we were experiencing together. So
Mhm.
counseling is definitely the number one. And then um, becoming friends. And I will say, I'd love to be able to say we started off as friends, but we literally knew each other for 90 days
Yeah.
before we got married. So
Mhm.
over the process of becoming friends and being able to see each other's ugly and our pretty,
Mhm.
and being able to accept our ugly and our pretty. As
Yeah.
we became friends, we became more comfortable with talking about it. So, it became a running joke that at the time, and we've been married for 25 years, so this is a little dated, but
Mhm.
it became a running joke that, like, if Janet Jackson ever came into the picture, I would be in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Or if Boris Kojo ever came into the picture, my husband would be in trouble. That
Yeah.
kind of stuff. I mean, we could talk like that. So
Mhm.
then we could really just be like, so what do you like? And,
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So it became a fun, friendly conversation. But before that, it was, what does this say about me? What does this say
Yeah.
about you? And it was out of insecurity.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that because even though we're in our 40s and 50s, I believe that there are some women that still struggle with sex and it being enjoyable and really the freedom of it, especially in the confines of a marriage. And so I appreciate just the you sharing your experience and your process and what helped you to open up more. For me, my I don't remember having an issue with the guilt once I did get married or letting go of the guilt. Mine was more so the idealizing of what the experience would be like once we got married.
Mhm.
So my ex-husband and I, we met in college and we dated briefly in college, and then we weren't together for like 10 years, and we didn't have sex before we got married. I mean, even while we were dating, which was about 90 days when we reconnected, and it took about 90 days before we got married. And so we didn't have sex during that time. And so my thinking was once we did do it, it would be magical, it would be fireworks and
Mhm.
explosive. And it was just like, a regular sexual encounter, And so I think I just had these ideas about what it would be like, on top of thinking that because we waited and didn't do it, then that would solve all of our issues once we got married, because we waited and now we're married. And so we shouldn't have any problems, because I had a very limited view of what what it meant to be married. And I just thought, if you wait and if you do it God's way, then he will bless the marriage and you'll be fine. So yeah, that view, that naive viewpoint about marriage, it really created some issues, especially with us ending in divorce. So it was a tough transition from that perspective of thinking that it would be roses and flowers and beautiful.
But can I say, this is my frustration with this,
Yeah.
that the only reason we have these fairy tales is because nobody tells us the real deal. It's not like there haven't been hundreds in our lives of marriages that have
Mhm.
gone before us, that we've been exposed to in some way, shape, or form, like in school environments, family members, just, I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of people around us, church environments. People are married around us. And
Mhm.
so to 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 still have the mindset that, oh, when I do that and to get married, it's gonna be wonderful. Like,
Mhm.
somebody around us ought to say, girl, it don't work like that. Like, it's, somebody ought to
Yeah.
say that to me. So that but maybe I haven't articulated that out loud, but I'm internalizing that. But because you've been married. And
Mhm.
so that's one of the reasons, because we're gonna bring real women up. It's gonna evolve in the conversation as something that we bring up. That's why I love real women and
Uh-huh.
sister circles, because we gonna talk about some stuff that does not get talked about,
We talk about.
and that you're not going to expect us to talk about, that maybe you didn't even think you needed until we brought it up,
Yeah.
but we're going to bring it up. And so I we walk around with that unnecessarily, because
Yeah.
somebody should say something.
You know what's interesting about that? I absolutely agree, because I do feel like there wasn't enough messaging around the reality of marriage, and the ups and the downs and the challenges that are associated with marriage, and not just the good things about it. But also, I know for me, I did have a handful of women who shared their truth about their marriages, and I didn't want to hear it because I thought that they were just doing it wrong. And so when
Mm,
I get married, I'm going to show you how to do it, because clearly you don't know what you're doing.
girl.
So I had this elitist thought process about it. So that was another part of it for me. Yeah.
Okay, so we are going some places, because you just brought up in my mind that fair point, touche, because it's also true that I did that. But it was at a marriage conference, so we had just gotten married maybe a year, and we had gone to a marriage conference with the intent of growing
Yeah.
and learning and stuff, and they were all talking about how hard it was and how difficult it is, and we were looking at each other like, what is wrong with them and their marriages, like,
Right.
and that was our exact thought. They not doing it right, child.
Clearly, we're going to be the example, and we're going to have a whole marriage ministry to show people how it should be done, because y'all are missing it. And we
Y'all,
got the answer right here. Like,
y'all are
sure.
missing it. Yeah. So you're right. It's both and, not either
It's both
or.
and absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. So, oh, this is so good. So the last one, and this probably can be a whole deep dive by itself. And let me preface this by saying, your body, your choice. You do what you desire to do, because it's your journey. Yes. And so that I'll say that. And so
Here,
the
here.
question is currently, sister, do you believe in waiting until you're married to have sex? We're going to end on that one.
That's where we gonna end, huh?
Yes.
Okay, so with everything that has been said, my answer might surprise you. So I have, this is layered. This is a little complex for me. I'm first going to answer it from my personal perspective. Do I believe I should have waited until marriage, or if I had to do it all over again, would I have waited?
Okay.
The answer is yes. And the reason why is because I really did bring you, and I say consensual because I can't control what was done to me that I didn't control.
Yeah.
um so I do wish I had not been exposed to it without
Yeah.
my consent as well.
Hmm.
But with consent, I do wish I would have waited because um, I focused so much on men and my feelings and my passions and my, all of the things that naturally come, but it arose in me and kind of stayed at the surface because I fed it. I fed that fire. And so um I wish I had focused on some other things, and then came to a relationship that became marriage for me without that, what I term as baggage, because it left me with a lot of residue that I had to work through in my
Yeah.
relationship. And so that's for me. And um, my answer for anyone else is your body, your choice.
Mm.
And because of my personal experience, if you were to ask me, I personally think it simplifies things when you are ready to settle down. But um, it is not necessarily for the scriptural, biblical, religious reasons that
Yeah.
people attribute to it. I don't believe, as you said earlier, that you do that and God automatically does something magical with your marriage and you don't have any problems in that area or any other because
Mm.
you decided to be a virgin.
Yeah.
So I don't believe it works that way.
Yeah.
But and so that's why I think your body, your choice.
Yeah.
And I would also say there is some merit to um, the fact that I'm not the only one in the relationship who withheld in waiting.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I don't necessarily want to have waited and then I got somebody else who did all the things he wanted to
Right.
do.
Right.
So ideally I would love to have been coupled with someone who also didn't bring as much baggage to the table. So that's ideally,
Yeah.
but yeah. So
Yeah. So this one is interesting for me because it's complicated for me.
mm,
So my simple answer is I believe that I would have benefited from waiting to engage in sex until I understood
mm,
what it was about. So not necessarily being married, but
mhm,
until I understood what having sex with someone does to you emotionally,
mhm,
physically, the bonds that it creates, and the challenge with disconnecting, let's say if you break up. So having that understanding and knowledge, some of the physical impacts and consequences like
mhm,
STDs, if I
mhm,
would have known, I think I would have needed to know more about it. On top of, I really needed to understand more about myself and maybe
mhm,
process through some of my trauma first, because unfortunately I use my body as a tool to get what I didn't get from my father growing up and all that kind of stuff. So it was a avenue to experience. I used it as an avenue to experience love, to experience acceptance, and to suppress the emotions and the hatred, honestly, that I had for myself. So if I was loved by a man, if I was accepted by a man, I gave him my body in exchange for what I deemed to be love and acceptance. So I wish I would have waited until I had a deeper understanding for the consequences and the depth of intimacy,
Yeah.
not
Can I
necessarily marriage, but
I
yeah.
have a question. Totally get that. Totally understand that. How would you have where would you have gotten that understanding? How would you have acquired that understanding? Either
Yeah.
was there something in place that you wish you would have experienced before having sex, or
Yeah.
does that not even exist, and you're just dreaming up a scenario that would have allowed you to to have that awareness?
It's more so dreaming up the scenario because I can't think of anything outside of church that was a place where I could get all of that from. And I say outside of church, like I understand the teachings of waiting until you're married. I see the benefits of it and
Mhm.
from a Christian perspective. And I also understand that that was the reason why I rushed into marriage as well, because of the messaging and how I internalized the teachings about marriage and having sex. And so if I were to take myself outside of that and just to do it when I felt that it was time for me and when I had all the understanding and the knowledge, that would have been ideal. But looking back, I don't know where I would have gotten that from. Other
Yeah.
than maybe once I joined Real Women, which was when I was in my 30s, and when I started to really be around other women, I was more mature and just more open to hearing from other women. So, but then that was because of all the experiences that I had. So this is definitely ideal, an
Yeah.
idealist type of response. But yeah.
And that just felt like a perfect time to say, if you're curious, if you're curious about a place that would do this, that
Yeah,
does do this, that, whether it's your 18-year-old, your 21-year-old, you 30, you 50, and listening to this, like, where has this been all my life? We are right here
yeah,
at realwomenrock.org. So
yeah,
please check us out, go there and get more information. But
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
totally agree.
So for those of you who are watching who have children who you're having, excuse me, conversations with, just be honest with them about the totality of sex. It's so easy for us to be like, don't do it. But let's just be honest and have some real conversations with our children, with our nieces, nephews, friends, anybody, to help them to understand the impact of sex, the depth of sex, what happens when you bond with someone. And for me, it was the bonding and the disconnecting, the bonding and disconnecting, and that can create some relationship challenges. So it's just so much involved in the act. It's pleasurable, it feels great, and it breeds connection. And so it's important for our youth and to understand what it's all about. And so do I believe in waiting until sex until you're married? For others who are watching, it is totally up to you. Whatever you
Mhm.
subscribe to, I support. So yeah.
Agreed. Agreed. Such a good conversation.
Oh, good. Oh my goodness. Yes. So I look forward to seeing comments and anything associated with this subject. So feel free to leave us a message about this and tell us about your experience with some of the questions that we posed by visiting speakpipe.com/real women real talk, or email us at info@realwomenrock.org.
Mhm.
All
Good
right,
stuff.
sister. Good stuff. So let us go into the putting myself in her shoes scenario. So this one is very interesting. It is from one of our favorite shows that we've talked about, but I won't say what the show is because I don't want to do a spoiler alert if I don't want to spoil it for someone who hasn't watched the show. So
Okay.
there's a great show out there that we encourage you to watch, but we're not going to tell you what show it is.
Cool, cool, cool.
Going to use the names that on the characters on the show. I'm just going to use another name, but that's where this scenario comes from. So
Okay.
Lisa and Jerry, they're married and they have two children. and they've been married for a while, and they recently experienced challenges in their marriage that caused them to separate. So they actually were living separately and still co-parenting and raising their children with the separation agreement in place. So during the separation, they communicated about their kids and they talked about getting back together and just what that would look like and all of that. However, Lisa, during this separation, she decides that she wants to get active. Since we're talking about sex, she wanted to have sex and with two guys that she on different occasions, not at the same time, because that
Oh, I was about to say, okay, Lisa. All
right,
right.
that would be a fun name, but no, it's on two different occasions she has sex with two guys, and Jerry was aware of it, and he chose, even though he knew that she was sleeping with other men, he chose to still try to work it out with her, and just he wanted to be with her and still to support her through this, and it was a whole lot of drama with one of the guys and he still supported her through that. So one day he got fed up and lonely and he slept with another woman without
Mhm,
Lisa knowing it, but they're still on a break. And so Lisa ended up having a stalking situation that resulted in the man unaliving himself. And Jerry was supported her through that. So they
now
went,
I know the show now. Okay, good, good,
okay.
good. I'm in now. Okay, got it, got it, got
I
it. Go
didn't
ahead.
know what show I was talking about. Okay,
It
that's so
took me a minute. Okay, go ahead.
what show is this? So Jerry was still sticking by her side, supporting her through that. And they decided to go to therapy and work on their marriage. And they moved back in together and they made progress on their relationship. And things seemed to be going well until Jerry found out that the woman he slept with during their separation got pregnant and the baby is his because she was sleeping with other guys too. But she got pregnant and found out that the baby was his. Putting yourself in Lisa's shoes, sister, would you stay with Jerry knowing that he has a baby on the way from another woman?
Child, child, child. Um, mm, now I'm thinking about the show. Now I'm thinking about myself. Um, okay. So there's a whole lot to deal with here.
Hmm.
And there are months and probably years of counseling that we're still going to have to do.
Yeah,
But if we've decided to stay together and I did a whole bunch of dirt
yeah.
and he did some dirt that led to this,
Mm,
I mean, I something could have happened. This is just the manifestation of
yeah.
his dirt, right? And I that could have very well have happened to me.
Mhm,
So it's a hard, reluctant yes, but
mhm,
it's a yes, and it's
yeah.
something we would have to work through.
Mhm.
But that's a hard one.
That's a hard one. Yeah.
Mhm. What about you?
This is a difficult one. But I think I would stick it out.
Mhm.
Because one, he didn't cheat. We were separated, and so we had the license to do what we desired to do. I was doing my thug thizzle. I was doing my thing.
Mhm.
So I can't be mad at him for doing his thing. It just sucks that there's a baby that came out
Mhm.
of the situation. That part just sucks because now I have to deal with not only this baby, but also this other woman who we would need to be on one accord or try to be as much as possible with the co-parenting situation. So there are a lot of nuances with us, also with us having two kids, having to break the news to our two children,
Mm.
deal with the
Child.
fallout of that. So it's just a lot that we would have to deal with, but I don't think I would want to end the marriage because he stood beside me through all of my stuff.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I would think that, I would stick beside him. Just a lot more stuff, but and long lasting stuff because this is a child that now you have to be with for years and starting over because their children are teenagers. But
Mm. And
yeah,
and and I mean, I honestly believe children, teenagers especially,
uh-huh.
they know more than we give them credit for.
Yes,
And
for sure.
so they are very, even thinking on the show, The
Uh-huh.
teenagers are like, "So y'all doing this or not?" Like, you know, just you act like I don't know, but he's been staying here or he's been leaving in the morning, you know, all of that. So,
Exactly.
um, I think, you know, being honest with the whole family, it's something that can be worked through, even though it's gonna take a lot of work.
Yeah.
And, and can
And
I just say, since we not naming the show, I
uh-huh.
don't, I don't think the baby gonna make it.
I was wondering that
I don't
the
think
last
it.
episode. I was sure enough wondering that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so that's gonna be interesting too to see what happens with that because I had that same thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. And the last thing I'll say about this before we wrap it up for the day is I was actually in this situation. It wasn't all this drama associated with it, but someone that I was in a relationship with, and it was early on in our relationship, and he found out that he could possibly have impregnated someone before we got together, and so he was honest about it. He told me, and I was willing to stick with him, but we found out that the baby wasn't his, thankfully, but yeah, so I was about to be in this situation.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a lot.
Hmm. All righty. So let us move into our last segment, which is our spiritual nugget. So this is a segment where we just leave a spiritual nugget to inspire, encourage, and uplift those who are watching and listening. So, sister, what do you want to leave with our listeners today?
um, what comes to mind is know why you do what you do.
Hmm.
Know why you do what you do.
Hmm.
When we are moving in the space of right or wrong or making decisions that take us left or right, I think it's important enough to pause and ask, why am I making this decision? In fact, it's going to be a future episode. I think the why and the how we make decisions is really important for us to think about,
Yeah.
because if we find that the decisions we are making or the actions we are taking are solely based on what someone else said or
Mhm.
what someone else told us, or we don't even understand the why, it allows us the opportunity to revisit and perhaps make some changes
Mhm.
in what we are doing and thinking. One of the things that happens, and I did not think, I thought this was as cliche as it comes, but I'm telling you, every decade allows me more and more time to ask myself, why do I do what I do?
Yeah.
Does it make sense to me and for me at this space in my life? If it does, let's move forward. If it doesn't, let's pause and make some changes.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
know why you do what you do.
Yeah. That is so good. I
Yeah.
don't have anything else to add to that because I think just stewing on that word is so
Mm.
important. Know why you do what you do. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes, yes, yes. So listen, y'all, if you have enjoyed this conversation, you can have more of these types of experiences with us, Real Women Rock. So visit us at realwomenrock.org to just learn more about us. We have sister circles every month, both virtually and in person. We have an annual intensive that is coming up November 22nd through the 24th. That's going to be amazing. So you can go to our website to find out more about that. But as you can see, we have real conversations. We go deeper, even deeper than this, when we are connected with each other. And there's so much that we glean from each other that we think you can benefit from. So if you benefited from today's conversation, you can have more of this by checking us out. So we would love for you to join us and just support us in the work that we're doing. So realwomenrock.org for more information. And
And
since
can
oh,
I
go ahead.
add, sister, before, if you decide that you want to come to our intensive that is 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of November. At the time of this airing, you have about 2 weeks to get your group rate for the rooms at an amazing hotel and to also get the early bird registration. Before October ends, you must commit by getting your hotel room. You don't even have to put down a deposit. Just let the hotel know that you're coming, and all of that information is at the website.
Yes, absolutely. So visit our website, realwomenrock.org, for more information. Well, y'all, this has been another amazing episode of Real Women, Real Talk. We are your amazing host, Shavon Carter and Dr. Trenace Richardson. It's been such a pleasure being with you. And so we invite you to just take care of yourselves, love on yourself, be kind to yourselves, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.